Hello, and welcome to Sobercast. We provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast format. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into the virtual basket. Also, if you're a member of NA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, NAPOD. NAPOD features NA speakers and workshops in the same format as Sobercast. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for NAPOD, N-A-P-O-D, all one word, on any podcast player app, or go to napod.xyz if you'd like to listen online. Hope you enjoy the podcast and have a great day.
All righty then. Well, my name is Teressa O, and I am an alcoholic. And I can't tell you what honor and a privilege it is to be invited to participate in this roundup. And I really don't, I'm not a big sobber, but man, they're just like, I'll probably be sobbing. When we came down through the lobby, I looked out. When I moved to Montana in February of 1991, I knew one woman who lived in Helena. And I was dry as a bone. I had been hanging out around AA for 2.5 years, doing only what I wanted, only at my convenience, which at that time consisted of a married man about every 2 weeks. And it was the same married man. It's not like I was tramping around AA for crying out loud. Padding my expense account at my employer, ripping them off on my timesheet, and pretty much going to work, when I could get there, taking a lot of mental health days off of my job, and hanging out at home with my 2-year-old daughter, trying to believe that it was going to get better any minute. And we moved out here to Montana because this woman that I knew in Helena would give me a job, and there were cowboys and lumberjacks here, I thought. And so here we come, and today my life is, that lobby is full of people that I know, friends of mine. Some are acquaintances, some are people that I know from service up at the area assembly or in my district, or from going over to the Beartooth Conference, or traveling around, from being active in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have this amazing life today that I had no desire or wish to have. I mean, frankly, I wanted to be left alone. It's not too much trouble, but here I am. And I can tell you that there's nothing special or wonderful about me. I was just a sick and desperate alcoholic who walked into a little nest of enthusiasm over in Helena, saw a cute guy, kept coming back, got a sponsor, got tricked into recovering, and here I am. But my job is like Dan's. I'm here to tell you what I was like, what happened to me, and what I am like today. And I am an alcoholic head to toe. And I didn't know that all my life, but I have been a weirdo for years. And I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in a family of 4 brothers and a sister from pretty normal parents. They're not alcoholic. They were people who worked full-time jobs and made the car payment and put the screens on the windows in the spring and the storms up in the fall. And, we'd shovel the senior citizen lady neighbor's walk in the wintertime and helped rake her leaves. And pretty normal, responsible kinds of stuff. They were married my whole life. My mother never once locked my dad out of the house, never ever saw her kissing a strange man in the front yard. Nothing strange going on. Well, unless you're an alcoholic kid growing up in that environment, it all seemed pretty weird. But it was a pretty normal life. But I was just not content. I can't even tell you that I would do weird things like move the furniture around in my bedroom about once a week. My mom would say, "Where are you going?" "I'm going upstairs to rearrange my room." "Didn't you just do that 3 days ago?" "Yes, I did." I just kind of give them that look like, "You're such a moron." Of course I'm rearranging my room, or I read a lot of books, or, I just kind of hid out from the, chase the boys around my neighborhood playing kick the can with this poor guy, and, I'd get him cornered up against the house, and, "Why won't you kiss me?" Please. Is that a rhetorical question, or what? And I, at some point in there, discovered some odd things. I had some friends, and we started huffing aerosol antiperspirant. We would spray it into a plastic bag until we'd black out on the bed. Woo! That was a fun time. things like that my parents didn't teach me about. You know, things that make you grateful you have friends. And one time, you know, finally, I guess when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I got drunk for the first time in my life. And it was fabulous. I was on a babysitting job. I didn't go to that babysitting job with the intention of getting drunk. It was a really good babysitting job. They were pretty well-to-do people. They had one little kid. They'd allow you to have friends over. I mean, all the big perks of a babysitting job they would go for. And we put their little girl to bed, my friend and I, and came back down, and out of the corner of my eye, coming through their dining room, saw a huge box of leftover liquor. It was right after the holidays. You know, those big, I don't know if they're half gallons or gallons, but to a 12-year-old, they were big fat bottles of booze. And, you know, we went out to the kitchen and got some tumblers, and we went and parked our butts in front of that box, and we commenced drinking. And we got very drunk. And I guess to describe a little bit about how I felt about myself before I got drunk, to give you an idea of where I start out, I'm flat-chested and straight brown hair and kind of, well, completely a geek, dork, dipweed, whatever, however you, I mean, I just can't even describe how much of a loser I was. I was born in 1962, so it was, you know, the early 70s, I guess, and so polyester was very big. A lot of static electricity, a lot of, you just can't get that stuff to stay off your skin. And my hair was full of static, and it was very fine and very thin, just like a constant, you know, it just gets bad, I can't tell you. And so we start out there, and then we park our butt in front of this box and start drinking, and I have what I know today all alcoholics get, you know, the effect of alcohol. And I sat down there, and I just was transformed. And I don't know how much booze it took, and I really don't care. We weren't measuring. But I just felt, you know, fabulous, wonderful, goddess, you know, nice chest, you know, flowing hair, just wonderful. And my friend also got very drunk, and she didn't seem to have the capacity for alcohol that I had because she started puking. And I think she threw up in just about every room of those people's houses. And I mean, I am not on their bed, in their bathroom, and I was chasing around behind her. No, not their bed, please. And my parents were out that night at a card party. They played a lot of penny ante poker with their friends from the Sons of Norway. And told you, pretty normal Minnesota kind of stuff. Normal if you're from Minnesota. And my mother came and picked up my friend and took her and dropped her off at her house, kind of propped her up on the door. She was so humiliated and embarrassed she couldn't possibly face that girl's mother, and left me there to take care of the kid. And those people came home and they found me passed out over the arm of their sofa. And you know, but he was waiting out in the car, and she came in, and there I was, and sent me out to the car. He gave me a ride home, paid me. I took the money, and got home, and my mother was just appalled. You took the money? Well, I did the job. I mean, house didn't burn down, baby's safe, everything's okay, a little vomit, you know, what do you have? I think you're overreacting. And, you know, and after that, I know the answer to my problem. And every babysitting job I went on, I got ripped. And, it's, you know, I'm needless to say I never babysat for those people again. But, and it's not the only babysitting job I've lost because of my drinking. There were countless people that I only babysat for once. But, you know, to go from being a complete and total jerk, loser, you know, lower than whale dung to being fabulous, you know, for what am I going to, you know, the book talks about not having a choice. It's like, really, you know, these are my options. I can feel like a complete loser. I can feel wonderful. Better than all of you. Better than I ever knew it was possible to feel. What's it going to be? You know, I'll be heading to the bowling alley parking lot trying to find someone to buy me liquor for like the rest of my life, okay? And that's just how it's going to be. And that is exactly, in fact, how it was. I don't know if it's because I have this opportunity to talk that I've been thinking about this so much lately. It's just how much I really love alcohol. And I love that about Alcoholics Anonymous, is that we don't begrudge anyone their love of booze around here. I was in a meeting in Helena a while back, and somehow before the meeting we got talking about, this is an AA meeting, but smoking hash under glass, and the whole room just went, Oh. Yeah. You are my people. If you understand that, I work with people. I am a part of my life today, but I work with people who can't imagine me smoking a cigarette, who wouldn't consider getting behind the wheel of their car drunk. And when I tell them that I was a chronic drunk driver, they just kind of like, Linda Blair, they freak out. They just can't even, you did? Well, I had places to go and things to do, so what, I was going to stay home or call a cab? No, I have, I'm self-reliant and independent and responsible. And they just kind of, okay, well, we're really glad that you go to AA. Yes, we are. I am all over the place. So here I am, teenager, hanging out in bowling alley parking lots in South Minneapolis, trying to get people to buy me alcohol and other drugs every night of the week. Every night of the week, I spend up in my bedroom trying on just the right pair of pants, making sure there's not one single panty line, because you got to look really good in the bowling alley parking lot. Nothing ever happened. To say nothing ever happened in the parking lot would be a lie, because there were nights that I was able to get liquor and drugs and get whatever I could get my hands on, and that's just kind of how it was. And it all seemed so very normal. I didn't drop out of school. I didn't, what are a few babysitting jobs? They're not real jobs, really. I didn't drop out of school, but I did get involved in remedial classes. I would do things. I would meet my brother in the basement. I have a brother who's a year younger than me, and we'd hook up in the basement before we'd had a block up the street to the school bus, and we'd, smoke a little weed, because I'm a fallen down, puking kind of a drunk, and you can't go to school in that condition. So we would smoke a little weed, and then we'd walk the block up to the bus stop and dive in the bushes while the rest of the nice little kids were waiting for the bus, and we'd smoke a few more, and then we'd get off the school bus and head up the alley with our friends and smoke a little more, and maybe I'd make it back to school, but most of the time I didn't. And, I was in a work release program, they called it. I only had to be there about 3 classes a day. But that was a little excessive, so at 11:30 in the morning, I'd go to my job as a waitress in a Chinese restaurant, and I don't know what you look like when you smoke marijuana, but my eyes kind of go like that. And so I had a nickname, Tokyo Test. That was pretty cute, working in the Chinese restaurant. And on the weekends, I would drink the way that I need to drink, the way that I love to drink, in mass quantities until I'm passed out and falling down and making a big scene. And at some point in there, I didn't have a really high tolerance for alcohol. I kind of started out, it's so funny where my mind's, where we all start out, where everybody starts out drinking with, where are they? Orange juice and vodka. Hello. Thank you. But I would get sick, and so I determined on my own that it was some kind of a citrus allergy. So I never went to a doctor, never had any diagnosis, just figured, oh, God, it must be the orange juice. And so I quit drinking screwdrivers and started mixing my vodka with Mountain Dew and puked that up. Hey, it's a tasty little beverage. And that was coming back up, so I started drinking beer. But never ever did it occur to me that it was the alcohol. That it was any kind of bizarre reaction. It just made me feel so good. I could do anything when I was drinking, and I didn't really ever do a whole lot other than go to the parking lot and try to get people to buy from me. But you feel like you can do anything, and when you're not drinking and you're so convinced, I'm so convinced that all of the world is looking at me and there's just nothing going to be right, and I'm just going to be a disaster for my whole life. But when I take a few drinks, you know what? I can talk to people, kind of peel my back off the wall, and be okay. And I didn't know that that is alcoholism. I thought that was normal teenage, still in your wild oats kind of a thing, and I couldn't have been more wrong. At some point in there, I met a guy. I wish the story was just more colorful, but everything seemed to happen in that parking lot. So I met this guy, and I fell in love, and we kind of did this little dance of death for about 9 years, I guess. Just a brief little interlude. Breaking up and getting back together, and breaking up and getting back together, and I would beg him to marry me, and he would never propose, so I would get angry and break up, and then I would find out, probably from my brother, the drug dealer, that this guy had won a bunch of money at the track and was buying cocaine all around the neighborhood, and I would call him up in the middle of the night and say, oh, I miss you so much. Can I come over? And go over and dive in, and we'd be at it again for about 3 months. And that just went on and on and on and on and on and on. And until I was about 24 years old, I guess, I turned out pregnant, maybe 23. And things changed. You're pregnant now, and you need to be a responsible person and not drink. And I think I found out I was pregnant when I was about a month into the deal, and stopped drinking and stopped smoking and stopped snorting and stopped everything because I was going to be a good and responsible mother. And what happened to me is that was the first time in my life since I'd started drinking that I went without alcohol or anything for any length of time. And what happened to me is the experience that's described in our book. I got weirder and weirder. I mean, I'm weird when I'm drinking, but when I'm not drinking, I just tip right over the edge, and I become impossible to live with. I was absolutely miserable. I tried, just smoking a few cigarettes just to get me by, and the doctor ragged me out about that, so I couldn't even smoke. I mean, I just sat there feeling like I couldn't do anything. I was not a glowing mother to be. I was a big, fat, toxic waste dump. And I was getting bigger by the day. Living with 2 active, practicing people. And I felt like I just sat there on the couch living with these 2 characters, and they would drink and do their thing, and I just kind of sat on the couch, double fisting peanut M&Ms and getting bigger by the day. And finally, that baby was born, thank God. And she was healthy and she was fabulous, but the day that girl was born, her father brought a bottle and a pack of Marlboros up to the hospital for me, and I can tell you that I just really needed a drink really bad. And while the rest of my family was down at the nursery checking out the beautiful baby, I was in the smoking lounge alone, pounding a bottle of wine and puffing away, and it was great. They brought her into the hospital room that night. I guess I was supposed to feed her. I don't know. They just they wheel in that little cart with the little baby. I have no remote clue. What do you do with a baby? I just had the baby because I didn't want to have an abortion on my conscience. That's kind of like how the baby got there. And I peeled her, looking at her, and then the nurse came in to take her back to the nursery, and they said, you didn't feed her? What feed her? 2 days later when they sent us home from the hospital, I remember loading her into my little pickup truck and thinking, these people are making a grievous mistake because, they have no idea what they're doing. They can't possibly, because if they knew what was going on at our house, which was drug deals and parties and all this kind of stuff. I mean, the apartment that we lived in, one whole wall of it was cork board, and we had this really scary carpet with a duct tape line. That was the dart line. And we would get loaded and throw darts at the dartboard, and if they missed the board, they hit the cork wall, and it was all very efficient and wonderful and efficient. Well, for an anal retentive alcoholic, that's an important thing. And I just think about my life, and I mean, it just was so normal. It was one day at a time. It just went on and on and on like that, and now I have a little baby. And, I didn't drink again immediately after, the day that she was born, but I think it was about 6 weeks later, and we were at a barbecue, and everybody around me was drinking, and I was nursing at that time, and I just couldn't stand it not one more second. I was just watching those people tipping back on a hot, sunny day, and I thought, forget it, and she was weaned right there on the spot. Party's over. You'll be having a bottle from now on, and so will I, and it'll be great. Because Mommy needs a drink, okay? And within about 3 months after that, I had left her father. What had happened is, when do I stop? That would be a good thing to know. Thank you. He also drank, and we would make these deals. And I believe that I was the responsible parent of the 2. But we would make these deals, okay, I'd say, we're going to a party, okay, everybody knows, okay, we're going to the party. And we all know that you got drunk last time and that I won't ever let you forget it. But now it's my turn, okay? Everybody's clear. My turn. I mean, you're going to be doing whatever you do, but I'll be drinking. And we would get to the party, and he would beat me to the punch. I would look over, I'd be tipping a few back, and he would be hammered in the corner. He must have been very attractive to have stuck it out with me for 9 years. And I would just get livid, and there was something in me, I guess I had enough control at that time to cut it off for the night. But it didn't last very long. Within 3 months after she was born, I was moving home to my folks so that they could help take care of me and take care of her. And what they would do is they would watch her while I would go out on the weekends and drink, and they would watch her the next day when I would be hungover. And that went on for several months. And, you know, it just, what kills me today is that it all seems so normal. And how anyone ever got through to me, you know, and then I'm standing here sober and in the condition that I'm in is amazing to me. Because that was just like my life, you know. So there I live with my folks, you know, for several months. And one night I'm sitting in the kitchen feeding Shannon, and you know, she's in a high chair, and I'm spooning the oatmeal into her mouth, and my head said, you know, God, wouldn't it be nice to have a drink? And it was like a Tuesday night. And right behind that it said, you know what? But you can't possibly start drinking on a Tuesday night while you're living with your folks. Because when I start to drink, I wind up passed out on the couch. And if they see me in that condition on a Tuesday night, it's going to be a problem. So within a couple of months, I was getting my own apartment and moved my daughter and myself into this apartment and just went out on the weekends and drank from time to time. So what was I like in the bars? Well, I was a treat. I did a lot of, well, where do you even start? You know, it's like my biggest fear whenever I talk is that you're either going to find out how sick I really am, or you're not going to be convinced I'm an alcoholic and I'm going to have to leave. And I can tell you that the latter has never, ever, not once happened. Not once. People walk by and go, oh, yeah, glad you're off the streets. I would do things, you know, I just loved everything about alcohol. I loved going to the liquor store. I love when you walk in and you know how the lights kind of reflect off of all of those bottles. I like the smell of the liquor store. I like sitting at my desk at work when I'm supposed to be working and we're having a party this weekend and I'm trying to calculate how many kegs I'm going to need. Definitely more than 2 16s and an 8. Okay, but then you're going to also need cases of beer for after the kegs run out and the party's winding down and you're still going to be up and hooting and hollering. And okay, so 2 16s and 8, 2 cases, probably some tequila for those other losers so they'll leave my beer alone, and all of the rest. You know, and I just love all of it. I've got a picture in my photo album of my first keg, and it was 2 16s and an 8 in my friend's basement, and it was wonderful. It just gives me goosebumps, the whole thing. I did other things. I dabbled, I guess, in drugs, and I only talk about it because the reason, I guess, today I understand that I did drugs is because they allowed me to drink mass quantities of alcohol. In and of myself, I can't hold a lot. I just can't. But if you feed me a little bit of speed or a little bit of LSD or some cocaine, ooh, baby, I am here all night. I am there when you are tapping the first keg. I am there when you are tapping the third keg. I am there when we are saying good morning. You know, I am there. And I love to drink. I just can't get enough. And that is just how it is for me. And that is alcoholism. You know, when I take a drink, I just want more. And I will do whatever it is that I need to do to make that happen. I thought it was careful planning. I didn't know that it was a disease. I didn't know that I was screwed forever, that I was just going to walk around packing this little thing in me. And I have it today. I have a mind that will get me back to a drink unless I am right in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, hanging out with the happy and joyous and active, enthusiastic, crapheads. That, I sit here and I listen to all the laughter and the stuff, and I think, what's not to like? But I remember what it was like being early sober and not really wanting to have to participate, watching you people, you make my skin crawl, planned pregnancies and all kinds of weird stuff. But I get ahead of myself. So me and my daughter are living alone in this little apartment, and I'm doing weird things, going into the bar, and I seem to have also this self-diagnosed hormonal imbalance that when I go into the bar and take a couple of drinks, I leave with a strange man. And, I'm not exactly discriminating. I'm not remotely discriminating. It's just kind of like, it's 2 o'clock. This is what I do. I go to the bar. It's a Thursday night because I want to beat the weekend rush. I don't like crowds. I really like to dance. So I go a little bit early to beat the cover charge that they start charging me, the $3 cover charge that they start in at 9 o'clock. So I get there a little bit before 9, drink 16-ounce beers for $1. Pretty economical. Single mother, on a budget. And got to be thrifty. You start thinking about the logic that you apply to one's life, and it gets a little unnerving. And then the music starts, because you had a few beers, so your knees are a little bit loose, so you can get right out there at the beginning. You know how dances always start out slow. There's nobody out there. Well, man, I was out there with my beer and my cigarette and twirling around alone because I wasn't there, looking for anybody. I wasn't one of those kind of women. And I would just dance all night, and I'd be a sweaty, ratted-out mess when the bar closed. But, you feel so good. It's just like wonderful. And then the bar's shutting down, and all of a sudden there's some guy over here. Hey, who are you? Or, what are you doing right now? Nothing. Hey. Not that I was attracted. It's just like, and it's not like this happened once or twice or it was an accident. It never seemed really premeditated, but it always seemed to happen, which led me to the theory of the hormonal imbalance that I just had no control. It's insane. And at some point, it starts to dawn on you that you are a single mother, Teresa, and this probably isn't too cool, and you don't seem to be able to leave the bar alone. And the last time that I tried to do that, I took some precautionary measures. You think about these things because it becomes troublesome. And I didn't shave my legs and I didn't shave under my arms because you can't pick up a stranger when you're not clean shaven. It just would be sleazy. And I suppose all those other times. So here we are, out with a couple of women who are not like me. They have a couple, they're just out here to have a good time, celebrate our friend's marriage, but I am a complete alcoholic. And I'm out there dancing on the dance floor with this guy, and the next thing I know, I'm flat on my butt on the dance floor, looking up at him. He was like a vapor. He was gone. I wasn't dancing alone this time. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll just go down to the pool room and mellow out for a little while, and went down there and started harassing some of the guys that were playing pool, and then the bar closed. And I hadn't paired off with anybody, and I made it outside the door of the bar, and I am not kidding you, I was patting myself on the back going, all right, plan A worked. And I must have gone into a blackout. Because the next thing you know, I'm standing next to this yahoo at his truck, and we're going over to his house to finish the party. And my 3 friends that are with me are coming along. They think we're just going to finish the party. They've never been out with me before, so they don't know the drill. And we get over to this guy's house, and then they all want to go home. And, oh, no, thanks, I'm staying. And can I borrow your razor? Oh, sure. And so here I am trying to get a clean shave at 2 in the morning, completely ripped. And I don't know if I'm sure he was disappointed. But, you wake up the next day, I'm 30 miles from home, got to pick up my baby. Gratefully, this guy worked by where I lived. And took me home, and, it just kind of starts to dawn on me that won't even work. So I can't even go into bars anymore. What am I going to do? I'll go to parties with my brother, because all of his friends are my friends, and I'll leave them alone, surely, until I go to the next party with my brother and his buddies, and I start hitting on one of them. And, now I can't even do that, so what am I going to do? Well, you know what? I'll just stay home and drink. My best friend lives upstairs, and we'll just get together on Friday nights and have a few beers and watch a little Dallas, a little Falcon Crest, and everything will be great. And woohoo, life of the party. And at some point in there, she dried out and came to AA. And I would call her up, and, it's Friday night, and she didn't tell me about it. I'd just call her up and want to come up and have a few. And she'd say, well, you could come up and drink, but I won't be joining you tonight. Okay. So I would go up and try to have a few with her, and that's a lot of fun, Drinking alone, with another person in the room. Woo-hoo. And so eventually I just stayed home and drank alone. And pretty much I was drinking, by the end, pretty much every night. I would come home from work and get my daughter to bed precisely at 8 o'clock and go out and crack a beer. And, 3.5 beers later, I'd be passed out in front of the TV. And I would lay on the couch, and I had a little funky couch and chair, kind of a living room set, had a colored TV and a VCR and a microwave oven and a dining room set that I got for $20 at a garage sale that I still have today. It's like a completely alcoholic dining room table. Don't lean on it. We won't be eating at that table. Our home group used to come over for fellowship, and it's like, okay, just take your plate and move away from the table. Maybe. Well, anyway, some things are just kind of hard to let go of. And I had a little S10 pickup truck, out in the parking ramp, and I would, right before you kind of pass out in that little bit of a stupor, thinking, if somebody were to break down the door and see what really went on here at night, they would be desperately concerned, because you're of absolutely no use to that kid. Every night you're completely loaded, and what are you going to do? And I wish I could tell you that that's what drove me into Alcoholics Anonymous, but it had nothing to do with my drinking. What happened is her father that I had left, he's an excellent father. He is very active in her life. He lives in St. Paul. She spends every Christmas and every summer over there with him. He's really good about hooking her up with my mother who lives there. He's a really good dad, after I badmouthed him all over town, but he has consistently participated with her, and he would bring her home from visitation after I'd maybe had a couple, and my favorite line, what are you doing right now? And we would wind up in bed together. And we had done this thing for 9 years, and now I recognize enough that I'm dragging this little kid along, and I just really don't want to be doing this. But it seems to me that I can't stop. And a friend of mine, this woman who dried out a little bit before me, said, it seems that you do these things when you're drinking. Maybe if you didn't drink, you wouldn't have to behave this way. And I so desperately wanted to be able to leave that man alone and stay out of that relationship and get on with my life that I was willing to pay, for me, the ultimate price at that time, which was to stop drinking. And got hooked up with a counselor who evaluated me. And, that's another resentment. But I agreed to do that. And my last drunk was at, I guess, the 1987 World Series. It was the Twins against some other team. You'd think I would know. I think it's the Cardinals, I think it was. And I went with my brothers. I have 4 brothers, and gratefully a couple of them drink like me. We meet at one of their house before, to have a few beers before we head to the pregame keg. And I'm drunk before we leave his house. And they're saying things like, Teresa, slow down. Teresa, take it easy. We haven't even made it to the party yet. Teresa. And I'm like, stay out of my face. I'm an adult and I know exactly what I'm doing. Never mind that I have an appointment next Tuesday to be evaluated for alcoholism. We'll just keep that little detail under her hat. And went to the pregame keg and was drinking a Pepsi, trying to mellow out a little bit. That's my little trick, is I drink really fast. I guzzle them up big. I just can't get it in me fast enough. And I'm that way today. I came up here with 2 cups of water thinking, I don't know if it's going to be enough. I usually pack around about 1.5 liters with me. I just drink a lot. I don't know if I'm going to dehydrate or what, but so we're at the keg. And then we head on to the ball game, and I went into a blackout. This guy, I guess he claims to have handed me $5 and said, the next time the beer man comes by, you want to get me one? Oh, yeah, sure, I guess. He claims I said. And so the beer man came, and the beer man left, and the guy didn't get any beer. And all of a sudden he's in my face going, basically, where's my money or where's my beer? Now, all of my brothers who are in the row with me saw me take this man's money, pocket the money, and I am, in flat-footed denial that I had anything to do with his money. And, well, check your pocket. I will not. And I didn't. So, and one of my brothers finally said, forget it, and they just gave him $5 out of their own pocket. This nice senior citizen couple that was sitting in the row ahead of us, turned around and got all indignant with me, how I was just there to drink. I didn't really care about baseball. Okay, well, whatever. You need to believe, lady, because this is like the first time the Twins have been losers in my whole life. So, whatever. And the game was over, and one of my brothers took me home, and in the car, I reached in my pocket, and there was a $5 bill. And I guess I'd had blackouts before, but never anything quite like that, where you just kind of go, just that sinking feeling of, oh my God. And so the next Tuesday I got evaluated. I was recommended to go to outpatient treatment, and I commenced outpatient treatment. Woo-hoo, looking forward to it. Not drinking, not anything, not ever again. Shoot me. How am I going to get through my life? How am I going to have dinner with my family? How am I going to watch TV at night? How am I going to be a mother to my kid? How am I going to get laid, go dancing, drive? I don't know. How am I going to do any of these things? It just baffled me. And but really, desperately, I wanted to be able to leave that man alone. And if that's what I needed to do, then I was going to do that. I guess about 2 weeks or so after I got involved in this treatment program, I went over to Wisconsin, Minneapolis, about 30 miles from Wisconsin. My aunt had a place over there. She owned a supper club for most of my life. And it was very conveniently located, and the bars were open until 2 in Wisconsin. And so I went over there and drank a lot, and there was a particular farmer that I dated when I was in town. Actually, he's like the one rare one that really we only did date. In my home group, dating is a euphemism for sex. It's just, I'm sure that no other home group is quite that sick, but that's how the women in my group are. And thank God, because when I got to them, then I could identify with what they were talking about. I guess I went on this date with this guy, and now I'm not drinking because I'm in treatment. But I'm trying to have a normal life, so I'm not staying out of bars or doing anything really different, not diving into AA. I think they required that you go to 1 meeting a week for the treatment program. I was an overachiever. I went to 2. And that's kind of how it worked. And I, go into the bar with this guy and have a Pepsi. And I don't know, about halfway through that Pepsi, he kind of looked at me over the table and you just really aren't very much fun on Pepsi. You're just not quite what I'm used to being around at all. And I thought, you really are right. But I'm an alcoholic, and what am I going to do? And at that time, the best that I could do was to order up a non-alcoholic beer. And I didn't think it was drinking. It seemed perfectly normal. And my head didn't fly off, and I didn't climb over the counter to get some more booze or pound down a 6-pack of that stuff that night. But for the next 8 months, I can tell you that I hung out in bars and keeping it in my house, drinking non-alcoholic beer. And maybe I started out with one that night, but by the end of that 8 months, I'm drinking 6-packs and 12-packs. And I mean, it's ridiculous. And if you've ever had it, it's absolute swill. Absolute. It's like, why would you even torture yourself? And I don't know why I never, I want to tell you that I never got drunk off of that stuff, but I'm drinking 6-packs for crying out loud. We kind of get into this little debate at my house every now and then about how much alcohol really is there in near beer compared to, for instance, say, apple juice. I can tell you that I have had apple juice in my life, and I have never ever once had an uncontrollable urge to have more. It's like, I have apple juice and I water it down because it's like, but throw me a near beer, baby, and I'll be taking a 12-pack. And I just got weirder and weirder, hanging out around AA meetings, kind of doing my own thing, which really, like I told you, was 2 meetings a week, no home group, no sponsor, no buckets, doing bars, doing near beer and this whole thing, and looking around my family and blaming everybody around me for the condition of my life. And I was miserable. I was absolutely crazy, and I had no idea that I was suffering from untreated alcoholism. And what I did is I packed up my daughter and myself, and I had a job opportunity over in New York City, and away we go. And we moved to New York when she was about 2 years old, and I know that after that time I didn't drink any more non-alcoholic beer. Something in me said, you know what, you're a long way from home, and if you continue to drink this stuff, something's going to happen, and you are going to find yourself loaded, and you just really don't even want to do it. So what I did is I just stopped drinking my non-alcoholic beer. Did I go dive headfirst into Alcoholics Anonymous? I had a life to handle. I had a job that I was starting and an apartment to settle down. A whole lot of other things going on. It was just not a priority because, I'm just not that bad. I'm not a bad alcoholic. No DUIs, no liver problems, no EVs, no wrecks, all the things that happen to real alcoholics. We all have our measuring sticks, right? You have yours, and I'm sure I would laugh at yours equally as much as you would laugh at mine. But we are all entitled to our very own measuring stick. Thank you. That happened to be mine. No DUIs, no VD. Okay, free and clear. Not a problem. Always had a job, always paid my bills, except for the couple of times my brother had to bail me out of credit card debt, and that didn't really count because it was drug money that paid that off. So what am I going to do? Here I am in New York, and it took me probably about a month to get to an AA meeting while I was there. After I first got there, and I walked in very desperate, very melodramatic, and I wanted to drink, and raised my hands in the back, and I got there late, of course, so there was no chairs left. And the guy who was trying to meet called me, and my name is Teresa, and I'm an alcoholic, and I just really want to drink. And he said, such a crap, and he said, do you have a sponsor? Get a sponsor. Boom, moved on to the next person. I thought, no way to treat a new person. that I got a sponsor. And can I tell you that I didn't get real active in Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't know where I got the idea. Probably, sitting at home alone on the couch in front of the TV, that AA was some kind of free-for-all, some kind of dynamic, hone your own program for recovery. Sit in a room with, 50, 60 people and kind of pick out the things that sound interesting to me and piece it all together to figure out what am I going to do next. And that's how it went, for about 2.5 years. And I can tell you that I got weirder and weirder and weirder as the days went by. I withdrew more and more. I was able to go to my job in the morning, and the only thing really that was getting me out of the house at that job was the prospect of staying home with my daughter during the day. I was horrified at being a mother. I had no clue how to do that. I'd been doing it for 2 years, and it would just get me out of the house, and I would pack her off. The little bus would come and pick her up, and I'd get on the subway and go to work and hide out in a book and get to work. And maybe I would make it through the whole day at work, but a lot of times I would leave early and go to the theater, go to watch movies, and I got a lot of relief going into movies. I was, just like at the beginning of the movie, you got a big bucket of popcorn in your lap and a giant Diet Coke and about a 2-pound bag of Twizzlers. The lights come down, and you just know that you got 2 hours where you don't have to do nothing but watch that screen. And that was it. And sometimes I was so desperate I would time it right. Would I go to a meeting? But I could time it right that I could get to maybe 2 movies that afternoon before the daycare bus would bring Shannon home from daycare, and then we would march up into our apartment, and she would go into her bedroom and play alone, and I would go in front of the TV and chain smoke and chain smoke. And that was pretty much how it was. And my diet consisted of double stuffed M&Ms, dipped in milk, and I would feed her. What did I say? Double stuffed. See, like this whole crew is my home group. They've heard this, so they're like, I'm surprised they're even awake. Hanging on every word. Double stuffed Oreos. Thank you. I'd put her in front of the TV with some mac and cheese with some wieners cut up in it because I was a good mother and giving her protein. And I'd go out in the kitchen and dip my double stuffs and eat them alone because I didn't want to be a bad example. And I would hide Haagen-Dazs ice cream like way in the back of the refrigerator. She was so tiny, I don't know if I was afraid she was going to steal it from me or what was the deal. And that just went on and on and on. I could kind of keep up the front during the day. And I got to the place where I guess I was about a year sober and sitting on the couch, chain smoking, and it just like a flash ran through my mind. Nothing has changed, Teresa. Your life is exactly the same as it was when you stopped drinking. What is the problem? I don't know. No, there's no man. Okay, wow. Woohoo! And if you've been where I was at, hanging around AA, all of that time, refusing to participate, there were a couple of guys in my home group at that time who were like Dan described. They were smiling. They were happy. They would come in. They were talking about the steps and the traditions and sponsorship. They were shaking your hand really hard. Those really hard gripper type of people. And you just sit and watch them, cross them, and just think through that and think, what's wrong with them? How can they possibly? I was in the row of people who was thinking. There was one guy who wore his shades all the time, and he would say things like, I keep coming back because you tell me it's going to get better, but I've been coming back now for 2 years, and it's not getting better. And I just want to know, basically, when? And that was my role. And I would watch that guy and his sponsor, and clean cut and clean shaven and happy, and it was real. It wasn't from the teeth out. And they were always happy to see me. And there was another guy there, Sonny was also very, very active, and he always introduced himself as, my name is Sonny, and I'm a happy alcoholic. And I'm going to tip you out of your chair, sport. Yeah, one more time. Holy mackerel. And he would, saw him at the International, he was doing a panel, and now he's like introducing himself as a happy alcoholic. But you know what? Today I'm in a much different place. Today I am a happy alcoholic. A lot of the time. And that's, at some point in my sponsor, the poor woman just didn't know anymore what to do with me. I had started breaking out in acne. Red, huge. Not just like a pimple here, a pimple there. It was my entire face broke out in these huge welts. And couldn't figure it out. And she whipped out her Louise Hay spiritual healing book and looked up acne. I guess there's a chapter on acne. Told me that it was a symptom of anger turned inward. And I thought, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard. You must be joking. And I had a lot of anger being directed outward, let me tell you what. I was doing like, coming unglued, I would punch my refrigerator. I would have these fantasies that if I could just nail it really hard, just right, just the right angle, that all of the rage would fly out of my body and I would be free. I was going to a counselor. She packed me off to a counselor. She really, God bless her, didn't have a remote clue what to do with me. And when I just kept, because she wasn't getting weirder. She was doing what she was doing with AA, and she seemed to be doing all right with that. But I tried to follow that example, and I was whacked out. I was nuts. And she was like, you are beyond me. I don't know what to do with you. And packed me off to a counselor who had me stacking up all the sofa cushions in her little apartment and whacking on them with a tennis racket until that room was filled with dust. And I would just be a sweaty, unbelievable mess one more time. And, oh man, I felt exhausted, feeling pretty good. And then go back out, the hour would be up, my feet would hit the street. I'd be 2 blocks on my way back to work, and it would all just come crashing back down on me, and I would relive it all over again. And the counselor finally didn't know what to do with me, packed me off to an herbal doctor in Chinatown, who had me drinking this bizarre tea concoction of like beetle hulls and licorice twigs and God knows what, tasted like absolute crap. Had to be like room temperature and plug my nose and pound it down really fast to get it down. I drank that stuff twice a day for about 8 months. The herbal doctor thought my problem was I was constipated. I mean, people just didn't know what to do with me. They tried, everyone gave it their best effort. My dad always told me I was full of it, but, I just think it would go to that level. I just was whacked out. And at one point in there, I guess I was about a year and a half dry, and I was taking my daughter to the supermarket one morning and had a little cart. We didn't have a car while we were there, and sensed something, I guess, behind me. I looked around. There was a guy coming. He was pretty clean cut. I didn't feel like he was any kind of a threatening presence. And turned around and kept walking. And all of a sudden, I had this arm around my throat. And it was about half a block away from my apartment. Lived in a pretty, nice little neighborhood in New York. And maybe my ears, this is like a bad Loretta episode. You know how your mind works, and it's like Danger Will Robinson, and I'm going through the litany of bad cop shows I had ever seen in my life. And the next thing I know, I'm down on the ground and said, I don't have any money. He's not a stupid mugger. He said, basically it's New York. They don't take checks. You're going to the grocery store. Give me your money. And I said, well, you know what? It's inside my jacket. I had a leather coat on with an inside pocket. And if, moron, you don't let me up, then I'm not going to have very much life getting through my money. So he let me up. Really cool he was. And the minute that my feet hit the concrete, I came unglued all over that man. You monster! I mean, just like absolutely ballistic all over him. And every time I opened my mouth, he took one step back. I wish I could tell you I was exaggerating. His eyebrows would shoot up a little bit, and somebody, a car kind of pulled up and saw us there, and going nuts, and hey, leave her alone. And the cops came. They thought it was a domestic dispute. They thought we knew each other intimately. Because I was just, this is what I'm like without alcohol, or Alcoholics Anonymous for a year and a half, just out there scrounging around doing my very best. And it's not like I wasn't busy. I was doing things, the things that I described, but they were not the solution for me. I wonder if that guy ever mugged anyone ever again. It would be fun to catch up with him and give him a little quiz. I guess about a year or so after that, I moved out to Montana. I had to get out of the city. I was not having very much success in relationships or really anything. I had a very good job with people who really liked the work that I did, when I was working. But I just had to get out of the city, and I had a little girl who was getting ready to start school, and I really didn't want to, raise her in a big city, and they paid me a lot of money to move out there to Minneapolis, which I bankrolled some of it. So we found our way to Helena. A woman gave me a job, and got to Helena. About 2 weeks after I got there, I walked into, it's in the book, which is my home today. And, yeah, right on. I just can't tell you how my life has changed as a result of my participation with these people. And it didn't start out, on a virtuous note. I got there, I was in such bad shape, and I didn't even know it. I needed a drink, is what I needed really bad, or I needed to get my butt busy. And I wasn't looking to be a joiner, I wasn't looking to be active, I wasn't looking to be happy and joyous and enthusiastic about AA. Okay? Because I have a life. At home alone in front of cable TV with an extensive video collection and, a little 2-year-old girl. But the meeting happened to be close to where I worked, and it was a new meeting, and I'm a single mother, so I was responsible, I thought. And here I walk into this little nest of people who are very, very serious about alcoholism and Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was a man in that meeting that I happened to find extremely attractive, attractive enough to keep me coming back. And the women passed around a meeting card like we do and gave me a bunch of phone numbers. And what I started to do with that list is call all those women and say, I have a crush on Alex, but I don't know anything about having a healthy relationship. And they would all, I'm not kidding you, every single one of them would burst into laughter and say, oh, well, we don't know anything about having a healthy relationship either. But we know Alex, and he's a really nice guy. And then I got to the woman who was my sponsor today, and I said, I have a crush on Alex. I didn't stop at one person. I kept going, because I'm a big fat opinion puller is what I am when I found my way to that group, and I'm going to find someone. When I was doing the married guy thing in New York, I went around to a host of women and said, I met this guy. And they all said, but he's married to somebody else. And I said, well, I don't want to break up his family or anything. We're just friends. And they'd say, I've never seen anyone ever come out of these things where somebody didn't get hurt or where everybody didn't get hurt. But I found one woman in that host of women who said, oh, I'm so happy you found someone like that. Bingo, baby. And I was, like snot on a sleeve for about the next year and a half. But here I am in Helena with women who honestly don't know how to have a healthy relationship. And I got to this woman, and I said, I have a crush on Alex. And she said, well, very droll, get in line. I thought, how your mind just goes, there's a line? Okay, I better get on it. Hustle up to the front. And she said, and I know Alex. And she said, and I know that he won't be interested in somebody who's not working the steps. Okay. I could work some steps, I suppose. So I got myself a sponsor who happened to be Sharon S., who was here in Billings today. And when I asked her to be my sponsor, she said, what, I'm moving to Billings in about 3 months for my job, and, are you sure this is something that you want to do? And I, at that point in my life, had about 4 different sponsors. The sponsors were a dime a dozen, not a problem. And we started meeting, and she started taking me through our book, page by page, word by word, in her kitchen once a week, and at some point, I think the chapter to the agnostic, we escalated to twice a week. And so it's just rocked the foundation of my life, the chapter to the agnostic. So she started taking me through the book and teaching me, what is alcoholism? Why is it that when you drink, Teresa, all you want to do is drink more? Why is it that you will do anything to get your hands on alcohol? And why is it that when you stop drinking, you're weirder than you are when you're drinking? What? And it just explained an awful lot about what had been going on in my life, up until I took a drink, up until I stopped drinking, and all the time that I've been dabbling around in AA until I found my way to these people. And I started to recover. That is what happened to me. And about 3 months into that day, Sharon was moving to Billings, and what had happened to me was my life changed so dramatically from just that short period of time. And it's not like I, woke up and got over it and got better overnight. I was a basket case. We would do things. We would, and it just, he was very active. As a result, I was very active. I followed him to every ungodly service commitment he had. I was going over to the women's prison with these women. We were going to Warm Springs. We were corrections committee, PICPC committee, and I was just going and getting out of myself and stamping our hotline number on literature and counting literature and taking pamphlets and meeting cards around to the racks in the doctor's offices and just, getting out of myself for the first time ever. And it was, and I just can't even tell you. But I was weird, and I was so afraid. My life had changed so much, and I had some hope and direction here finally for the first time. And the prospect of not having a sponsor that lived in the town where I lived, who would see me, who I was accountable to, horrified me, just because of how much my life had changed in that brief order. And I knew how much of a recluse I was, that if I wasn't accountable to somebody, it was going to be a bad deal. And at that point, I switched sponsors, and I have a sponsor that I have today. And we continue to work through the book and making amends and doing things. And Alex and I eventually got together. And today we are married. We've been together for 8.5 years. We've been married for a little bit over 5 years. I just can't tell you about my life. I sleep in a bed most nights, not in front of the TV. I am comfortable on this planet without alcohol and without drugs. I am faithful and monogamous with this man. I've lived in Helena now since February of 1991. He's the only one I've taken to bed. I mean, it's like, the whole town should just be so thankful. I know, that is not I don't say it lightly either, because I had just been such a mess. And you start to think about all the weird things that are just so simple. The bills are paid, the rug is vacuumed, the dishes are washed, my daughter is fed, people are taken care of. I have a beautiful daughter. She's 13 years old today. They have a very fine relationship. A lot of times I think they get along better than I get along with either one of them. I have a job today where my boss just thinks I'm fabulous. I mean, fabulous. They just love me. They love me. No, it's bizarre. And it didn't start out that way. I worked in a little publishing company up in Helena. That's where I started out. And when I was making amends, I went and made amends to my supervisor there. That was the first one that I did. When I got to the 9th step, I went to Sharon and I said, I need to make amends to Alex. And she'd say, you come here every day, whatever, whining about your employer and your boss at work. I think maybe you could start there. Well, how are we going to get this relationship moving? It's like, I don't make amends. She said, just to make amends to your boss. And I went and made amends to that woman for doing things like bad-mouthing her behind her back and judging her and thinking that I could do her job better than she could do it. And I mean, it's just an endless list of being a really crappy employee, basically. And when I went and told Sharon that I had made those amends, she said, I'm really glad you didn't have to lose your job. I'm so thick-headed, I had no idea that that was even a remote possibility. When you go and get honest about all the skeevy stuff that you're doing, that they're even going to want you to still work for them. Well, I guess perhaps I'm lucky. If you say so. That boss, that employer, the owner of that company used to come back and find me passed out on my desk, and I'm like sober, passed out on my desk in a public role. And, finally, I guess the last time it happened, he said, next time when Teresa wakes up, why don't you tell her I want to have a word with her? And hauled me into his office, and he was very nice. He said, basically, you're a supervisor. Hello? And we can't have you passed out in front of the staff for like an hour and a half every morning on your desk. And I had tried things. I had tried drinking coffee and eating chocolate, all the normal things that I try to keep myself up, short of speed and cocaine and LSD. That would be bad. Talked to my sponsor about it, and she said, I don't know. She said, go talk to your doctor. See what he has to say. And went and talked to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, everything that you're describing, not being able to stay up and things like that, sounds like depression to me. And I got very afraid because I know what that means. And I really am not particularly interested in knowing that. And I said, it might sound like depression, but I'm not depressed. I mean, I'm a wacko, I'll give you that, but I'm not depressed. I have some hope going on, and my life is moving in a positive direction, and, went back to my sponsor and told her what he said, and, we started looking at my life. And what we looked at was, how much sleep are you getting every night? 4 hours, she said. What are you eating every day? Only cookies and Diet Coke, you say. Well, you might benefit from a little rest and nutrition. I mean, I don't know, but you might want to try that. And so I would try. I didn't burst right into 3 square meals a day and 8 hours of sleep. I still have a hard time going to bed. I'm afraid to go to bed early. I'm going to miss out on something because nothing really happens after 10. Okay? Nothing. We all know that. Okay. And I'm going to miss out if I'm not there for it. Kind of like the bowling alley parking lot trip. And you know what? I'm not depressed. I recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. I am a functioning member of the human race. I am someone who needs desperately alcohol and other drugs, but he seems to be doing okay reaching out to newcomers and, showing up with my sponsor and doing a lot of the other actions that I've been taught to take by these people. And my life is pretty unbelievable today. I still have an alcoholic mind, and I'm convinced today that I'm always going to have it. I went to the doctor a few years ago, I guess, and had an ingrown toenail. I mean, weird things happen to me. Not that an ingrown toenail is a weird thing, but the guy numbed up my toe. I didn't feel my toe for like 3 days after. And it wasn't a particularly pleasant experience, wouldn't recommend it to anybody as, things to do, on Thursday in Helena. But I walked out of that guy's office, and the first thing that my mind said to me was, you know what, Teresa, you have 9 more toes. I thought, when you think things like that, you get a little embarrassed for yourself. It's like, God, that's so desperate, I went home and called my sponsor and told her what was going on, and she said, you probably got an effect off the local anesthetic. Just, get on your knees and pray and ask for God's help to do what you need to do to stay sober, and you'll get through it. And I have not had to, go back for more toe surgery since. Quite a deal. But things like that happen to me, where I'm in the thick of AA, and my head crops up with something weird like that. I was before we got married, I went to try on my wedding dress and went into the supermarket next door to the bridal joint and get a gallon of milk to take home, and turned around and with a gallon of milk in my hand, and there's a wall full of wine bottles. We don't sell liquor in Minnesota in the grocery store. There's a special store for alcohol. Special. But you turn around here, and it's like right in the dairy aisle, for crying out loud. And my head says, screw the milk. I am terrified. I don't know how to be monogamous. I don't know how to be married. There's one surefire way that I know out of this deal. Screw the milk. Get a big fat bottle of that stuff and head out to the parking lot. Seems to be a theme. And just drink it. Don't go home. You'll have to share with him. It'll be a problem. It just won't be enough to go around. And, I'd been in an AA meeting that morning. I'd been doing what I needed to be doing. I just clutched the milk and got out of the store and went home to my family and got through it. Didn't have to drink. But more and more, I'm just convinced that I'm going to have this kind of thinking. And that's why I need to be as active as I need to be. And if you're new, okay, and you're suffering from the disease that I suffer, I mean, it is a bad deal. It is not fun. The prospect of life without anything is horrifying. It is to me today. How can I possibly? It's just 11 and a half years is too long for anyone to have to go without a drink. And I haven't had anything since May 24th, 1988. And it's not because I'm special or wonderful or a light case, as you probably all understand now. I am a basket case, in and of myself without you and without this program. But if I'm here with you, I have a prayer, and I have a huge chance, and I don't ever have to drink again. It is possible to be comfortable without alcohol and without drugs, but I'm going to have to do something. And it's more than just sitting in a chair. It's more than just hanging out in some meetings and just not drinking, But if I will truly just dive into the middle and latch onto the people that are laughing and joking and having a good time, then I'll find what it's just, I can't tell you. This room is full of people that I know. I am a loner. It's bizarre. I can't tell you. And what a huge gift. I don't know, I just want to gush and gush and gush about AA. It's fabulous and wonderful things. And if you stick around this weekend, that will be demonstrated to you over and over and over again by the people here in the meetings and the workshops and the greeters and the people at the registration and the people, stocking up cookies and making coffee and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to thank you. I really am so privileged and so grateful to be invited to participate. And, thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.